John Lynch, Matt Barrows tweets, John Lynch had a long answer when Tom Tolbert asked him on KNBR about the timeline for a release if there's no trade. However, his first words were, yeah, I think we're getting pretty close. Speaking of Jimmy Garoppolo.
Well, I mean, God, the date's technically right around the corner. So, I mean, to me, I saw some people in the chat going, he might be ready. Well, the date is next week. So him saying pretty close. Could he just be saying the date when they cut everyone? He's just going to be part of that.
Yeah. You're saying their season starts 17 days or 18 days away. He's got to be gone by then at the latest.
Yeah, because if he's on the roster week 1, just on the roster, his $25 million gets guaranteed, and that is not happening. But 2, when you cut down to 53, you couldn't keep Jimmy Garoppolo around and cut some other random guy, could you? Like, if you're like, well, it's between Jordan Mason and Jimmy Garoppolo, like that's pretty bad business. You're going to keep 4 quarterbacks on the roster?
Right.
Yeah, if you told me that like tomorrow or on Thursday they cut him, like I think it's time. Now your thing would be, oh, why don't you just wait for this thing? But how many of these guys are even playing? Just
why you do that? Why you do that voice?
Well, because I think a lot that's just a lot of like Greg Pop, like why it's NFL business. Make him wait. It's like Jesus Christ, what the fuck are we doing at this point?
Well, I'm not even arguing you should or you shouldn't. I'm just saying they've held on to him this long. What would be different about yesterday from 3 days from now, right? Well, 3 days from now, well, I guess not quite 3 days from now, but once the preseason game ends, all the games end. Like, what if Davis Mills gets hurt against the 49ers on Thursday? We're playing games. No one's joint practicing after Sunday, right? There's no quarterbacks are going to be live after this weekend when the preseason ends. So then you're even holding out hope now you're really hoping against hope. Now we're talking about practice injuries. Which I think, to your point, is once the games end, and then the long shot that existed for an injury gets even longer once the games end.
I think next week is a very, very light NFL practice week. If not, several teams are going to get 5 to 6 days off, right? To me, next week is about cutting guys. I don't think you're really practicing next week. Now, maybe the Bills and the Rams, given that their timeline's a little different. But I think the majority of teams in the league next year or next week, I wouldn't go quite like a bye week, but it's closer to a bye week than a normal NFL week, given that the weekend's off. If you told me that a lot of NFL teams give their veteran guys, Wednesday through Sunday off and see you Monday morning, right? For the following week, I'd believe that.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. We've got a situation.
I also saw that Pete Carroll say that he feels they have 2 number ones. I saw that was part of it, right? They don't want to cut him and him going there, which I think is. If I told you they cut him tomorrow and he went to Seattle, would you be like, I look at that week 2 game a little differently?
No.
He can't throw deep. Their best 2 receivers are deep threats. He can't throw deep. That's all we've been saying all camp. It's like, well, we don't want him to go to Seattle. So what? He can throw slant routes to DK Metcalf. He can't throw bombs. Like, that is the thing with Jimmy. They're literally their best 2 players are deep threats. Definitely their best players are deep threat. Jimmy can't do it.
Well, and how many times does Tyler Lockett end up on the sidelines, catching balls along the sidelines?
I just think that and clearly Kyle has said that to people and John Lynch, because I've heard, Papa mainly has said it. Well, I know he's not just pulling that out of his ass. I know where he's getting it from. It's like, guys, if you told me that he ends up on Seattle, I wouldn't think one iota differently about anything involved in this NFL season, except if you went from, well, could Seattle, instead of being 3 wins, wins 5 games, like, yeah, I could see something like be a little more credible, right?
I saw Adam Shine. Did you see what he said? Adam Shine, who I love, said he called it the saddest quarterback battle ever. Geno Smith and Drew Lock.
It does feel when you're saying stuff like that, and I get Pete is an over hyper type. It's always kind of been. It's hard, man. Pete, you're in for a rude awakening. People aren't going to want to hear it. People are just not going to want to hear it.